All right, so Dan Wallach is with us now because we've been talking about the NBA. This all seems crazy to me. And so this guy's been in all these hearings and can explain it. Dan, why am I wrong? I believe that this is a seismic shift in sports. I believe that we are right now presently in the middle of something that, if Silver can pull this off, is going to change sports. So explain to me, please, and thank you for being on with us, what's happening here, because I can't believe a commissioner in sports is doing this.
Well, it's not Commissioner Silver, and it's a pleasure to join you, Dan and Stu Gotts. This is 9 justices on the United States Supreme Court that are on the verge of shifting the landscape for sports betting because a couple of weeks ago, the court heard a case which involved the state of New Jersey's challenge to the federal ban on state-sanctioned sports betting. This ban, which is known as PASPA, the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act, has been in place for 25 years, and it has prevented states from legalizing sports betting. New Jersey has challenged it on constitutional grounds, and the court was very receptive to New Jersey's arguments. So I think the conventional wisdom is the court will strike or invalidate PASPA, thereby clearing the way for states like New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania to offer sports gambling within their borders. So I think the NBA and Adam Silver are trying to get ahead of the curve and try to at least extract whatever concessions they need from state governments in order to allow this.
Why is the NBA leading on this?
If it was the NFL, they wouldn't find a very receptive audience with all their problems. The NBA has been a thought leader on the subject of sports betting going back to 2014 when Adam Silver penned an op-ed in the New York Times urging the legalization of sports gambling through a comprehensive federal solution. What the NBA wants to see is a uniform scheme that all states can abide by, done at the federal level, rather than through a patchwork of different state laws, which is what New Jersey was trying to accomplish. But I think that issue has gotten away from the NBA somewhat, and now the NBA, in order to have some say in the process, is going to get involved at the state governmental level and try to influence laws in New York, New Jersey, and all around the country. So the NBA has been the thought leader on sports gambling dating back to 2014, and the other leagues are simply just following the NBA's cue on this.
Dan Wallach is with us now. He's a partner at the law firm of Becker and Poliakoff, and he's been in on all these hearings quickly in ways that anyone can understand.
I'll try. I'm a lawyer. It's difficult.
Yeah, well, that's why I asked the question that way. Is this going to happen by when?
Before week 1 of the 2018 NFL season, New Jersey will have sports gambling. If the Supreme Court strikes PASPA entirely, you could see as many as 15 states, including the key northeastern states of New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, all having sports books in casinos and racetracks, with some internet or mobile-based gambling, confined within state borders. So if this decision goes the way we all expect, we're going to have nationalized sports gambling before the start of the NFL season next year. It's not going to be all 50 states, but it's going to be as many states that can get their laws in place before then, and I expect or project at least a dozen states to be ready to go by week 1.
Explain to me, if you could, what the ask is here by basketball, saying we want 1% of all basketball gambling. How much money do you imagine that would be?
Well, if you take a look at the projected market for even illegal wagering, I think by most experts believe it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $200 billion annually wagered in the illegal market. You take 1% of that, well, that's a $2 billion with a B annual cut for the sports leagues. And since the NBA and the NFL probably are the most dominant sports on which gambling takes place, it could be close to $1 billion annually for the NFL and NBA combined, maybe even more than that.
Who is that negotiation with? Who has to give the basketball the 1%? Like, why would anyone have to give basketball the 1%?
Because the leagues will try to block any legislation that does not include a payoff or a cut of the action. The leagues care about two things here. They want to get paid for their product because without their product, there's no sports gambling. So in essence, it's a payoff, but they've couched it as an integrity fee because the leagues will now have to ramp up their operations to ensure that there are no fixed matches. They'll have to hire betting experts and really have an organization in place to safeguard the league and the game.
Dan, it's a side business. They've got an entire side. Basketball is going to create a
$2 billion
multi-billion-dollar business on the side.
It's for everybody. They're not the only beneficiaries, Dan. We're talking casinos, racetracks, sports betting operators, Google, Verizon. Verizon is trying to position itself for the online gambling market. This is going to be an economic juggernaut that is not limited to the leagues. It's going to benefit over a whole spectrum of industries. And, of course, the leagues, since they own the games, since they produce the games, want to get a pretty sizable cut here. So they care about the money, and they care about preventing fixed matches. So they're going to insist on consumer protections and safeguards.
That's the part, though, Dan. That's the part that's complicated here. Like, they can try and protect integrity of matches, but isn't the greatest concern here that all of a sudden you'll have another Tim Donaghy situation that they won't be able to monitor it?
Well, you want to be able to monitor it and detect it in an open, transparent, and regulated market. The reason we've only heard about Tim Donaghy and no one else is that the leagues and the industry are basically have their heads in the sand and have no idea what's going on in illegal markets, which are very difficult to monitor. Once you open it up and create like a stock market-like exchange with monitoring and regulation and oversight, you'll be in a position to detect any type of corruption or match-fixing possibilities at the earliest possible time. You're not going to eradicate all of it, but wouldn't it be better to have an early warning system and some ability to detect rather than to pretend it doesn't exist? I mean, basketball is not the problem. Some of the lower leagues, tennis, some of the soccer leagues in Europe, this is not going to be a major problem at the major U.S. professional sport level.
Let me ask you this.
They pay too much money.
If I may ask you, Dan Wallach with us, partner at the law firm Becker and Poliakoff. He's been in on all of these sessions. Who's paying you? Like you sound like you're advocating for this, and so I just don't know what your history is. Like, what are you fighting for? What are you personally fighting for in these meetings?
I'm passionate about the subject. I have not received a dime on this issue from any stakeholder. I've been following the sports betting debate going back to 2011. I'm a gaming lawyer. I'm a sports guy. I just found an issue that I'm deeply passionate about, and I'm not an advocate for anything other than what I think is common sense regulation, which is everybody is going to benefit from this. State governments, the leagues, taxes, the casino, the tourism industry. This is a win-win for everybody as long as there are appropriate safeguards in place to prevent compulsive gambling safeguards and to prevent match fixing. I don't have a dime of benefit from any of this. I'm just passionate about the subject, just like you're passionate about sports and you've earned a living from it. I've, unfortunately not earned a tremendous living from being opinionated about this subject, but it's something I care deeply about, and I think there's a consensus across the board that this is going to happen and it should happen. Where the disagreement lies is in the vehicle and in the regulatory structure that would work best.
Who would be upset by this? Are you saying no one? No one would be upset by this. Doesn't hurt anyone?
Roger Goodell and those who believe that more gambling creates more problem gambling. Certainly there's a risk of creating a new generation of gambling addicts, but in the absence of any regulation or legalization, there are no safeguards, there's no education, there are no vehicles to help these people.
How about Vegas? Vegas isn't hurt by this at all?
Not in the least bit. The companies that own MGM and Wynn, they own casinos in other states. They are supportive of having their properties in other states.
Look,
you crushed it.
First of all, you crushed it. You get the salute of our shipping container. You crushed it. But just for the record, everybody, just for the record, because we'd be irresponsible if we didn't say this, the big drawback is the horrible addiction of gambling that is going to plague all of our country and ruin lives. But other than that, we're good.
Yes.
So thank you, Dan, for your excellent work here. You did important work here.
Awesome, Dan. Yes. And by the way,
Dan and Stu Gotts, it's the Miami connection. We have to keep it together. I'm located only a few miles away, so I'm glad you located me in plain view here.
Well, is Florida going to be one of those states? Because if not, I'm moving.
Yeah, is Florida going to be one of those states? No.
Florida will be the last mover. The anti-gambling forces in Florida are not at the cutting edge. We can't even expand gambling. We don't have any casinos. We just have racetracks and poker and slot machines.
All right, Dan. All right, that's fine. We'll hire you in Florida. Let's see if we could get cocaine legalized. All right, you'll be our cocaine lawyer.
Dan, I'll work on it.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you.